Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OSI Today, the podcast featuring news and views from around the Office of Special Investigations. I'm Wayne Amon from OSI Public Affairs. It's fair to say, that improvement and growth are direct results of lessons learned through life's experiences. Now, the same can be said for federal law enforcement agencies. In OSI, the Lessons Learned, or L2 program, collects data and consolidates, processes, and analyzes observations from the field to generate lessons learned, which are implemented command-wide. Today's guest is the Associate Director of Studies and Analysis and recently named Director of the OSI L2 program, Allyson Stephens. Ms. Stephens, welcome to OSI Today. It's so great to have you with us.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you for having me.
Now, for our listeners who may not be familiar with OSI or the L2 program, in layman's terms, what exactly is the OSI Lessons Learned program?
Really, simply put, what it is, it's the method that we use in OSI to collect successes and also things that we could do better. And we're collecting those things from the diverse experiences of our airmen and guardians. It provides us with a central location to get valuable lessons learned information and then use that information to improve something like an organization, a process, even in individuals' performance. And I think it's also important to mention some of and you briefly touched on it in the introduction, but I think it's important to mention some of the terms that we'll be using or that I'll be using. And the first one is observation. Really, that's just the thing that we can do better. And it comes from the perspective of either the person or the team who experienced it firsthand. And then a lesson learned is that thing that we could do better, but it's actually resolved at this point, and it results in a change and an improvement in that process or procedure. And then a best practice is really just a validated method, something that we've been doing that shows superior results and is probably worth repeating and worth other people using as well.
I see. Okay, sounds like a very diverse program, to say the least. But you mentioned a key word when you began our session here. You mentioned diverse observations, and I know that diversity and inclusion is a real hallmark these days of OSI. So I would imagine that it stands to reason that diverse observations are a real key element for the program. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely, that is a fair comment, and everyone has different experiences, and we want to hear from everyone, from the field agent, lowest ranking airman, all the way up to senior leadership for this program.
I see. Now, in reading your brief biography before we went on the air, it mentions that you yourself are a 27-year Air Force veteran, a retired Chief Master Sergeant. And I would imagine that from your perspective, as a former chief, you bring, your own diverse ways of looking things to the table as well. And has that so far been able to serve you pretty well in your new position as the L2 director?
Yes, it has. And it helps to know the terms and the acronyms and the lingo that we use within OSI and also the Air Force and the Space Force now. It puts me ahead of the game, per se, just because I already know those terms and I'm familiar with them, and I can kind of weed out the information a little bit better.
I see. Now, in the most recent quarterly edition of the OSI Lessons Learned newsletter, it was mentioned that for years, OSI had faced the challenge of sustaining a Lessons Learned program. Now, as you have assumed the duty as L2 director, how do you envision overcoming that particular challenge?
Well, the first thing I would say is the key to a successful Lessons Learned program is really leadership involvement. And I can assure you that our leaders at the most senior level of OSI support this program and its efforts. So that's going to be key. And previously, we didn't really have anyone specifically dedicated to this program. It was more of an additional duty. Now, while I do have other responsibilities, Lessons Learned program is my main focus, and I'm able to work it daily to ensure its progression.
I see. Yeah, like I mentioned, it seems like a very worthwhile endeavor that takes a lot of time to do really right, and for lessons to be learned correctly, it does take a dedicated person at the top like yourself and our leadership to do just that. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, as a federal law enforcement organization, OSI is results driven, like many organizations are. Now, in that regard, how does a lessons learned program work to benefit an organization like the Office of Special Investigations?
Well, really, an effective lessons learned program saves time and money, which everyone is looking to do. It provides information that people can pull before conducting their activities. So while it might add an extra step in the planning process, it saves time in the long run by informing you on any best practices and mistakes to avoid. Mm-hmm. Also, it allows for the expansion of your information network by providing information sharing opportunities. Liaison is very important in not only OSI, but federal law enforcement in general. And this gives you an additional opportunity to share information with your counterparts and grow those relationships.
I see.
And then,
go ahead.
Also, I would say it reduces the risk of repeated mistakes, and it's going to improve our overall chances of any continued success. Mistakes, again, in federal law enforcement can be very costly, and nobody wants to make the same mistakes over and over again. So having a mechanism like the Lessons Learned program to avoid that just makes sense.
I see. It certainly does. Now, from a grassroots perspective, how does the successful implementation of the OSI Lessons Learned program affect the command? In other words, what does it do for those that are in the field right now?
Put simply, it makes their jobs easier for all the reasons I just mentioned. And I mean, it can improve management processes. It can help you in developing new strategies and improve decision making. It can improve, like I said earlier, your personal performance. You can use it to increase your organizational knowledge. Mm-hmm. It keeps you from having to recreate the wheel. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we don't still need innovation, because we absolutely do. That is critical as well. But why not use the information that's already available to us as to what has worked for us in the past and what hasn't worked, so we can improve our operations and mission.
I see. Now you mentioned, it kind of has a, I guess, if I read that last answer correctly, kind of a trickle down perspective, if you will, that not only from the top leadership, but on down to the regions and the squadrons and the detachments, this has a very positive trickling effect down to where the boots are meeting the road, if you will.
Yes, that is correct. Absolutely.
Now, from a process standpoint, what are some of the tools that are used to enable the OSI Lessons Learned program to be its most effective?
Well, currently, everything that's needed can be found in one central location on our OSI Lessons Learned SharePoint site. Uh-huh. So the process should be used early and often. So keeping a lessons learned log really helps keep your information organized and ensures that you don't forget things. And that can be found there. Additionally, anyone that has the ability to submit an observation onto that site or a best practice, I maintain a tracker in there where anyone can go see the status of those submissions and as they go through the process. And then we also have a couple of other tools available to input those lessons learned into the process. And those are after action reports and end of tour reports. Those help us as well to pull the lessons learned information that's out there.
What you're saying then, I would imagine then, is that archiving these lessons that are being learned for the command is really an essential element of it because it is a ready reference. In other words, is that correct?
Yes, we have to be able to go back and pull that information so we can use it.
I see. Now, through the years, and I think you alluded to this briefly earlier, partnerships have always been a staple for OSI throughout the command. What partners are playing key roles in the successful execution of the OSI Lessons Learned program?
Well, first I'd like to mention organizational development. They are the office that helps facilitate the process improvement with lessons learned. Also, the Futures and Doctrine office, they assist with getting any of those lessons learned into doctrine if it's not already there, or helping make adjustments to that. Our requirements directorate, they have the subject matter experts that help us validate these observations. And then they also pull the lessons learned from those after action reports that I mentioned. The Inspector General's office, they also push us any lessons learned with things that they're finding throughout their processes and inspections. We are lucky enough to have an expeditionary lessons learned contractor that sits in Germany, and he collects and analyzes all deployment related lessons learned. And finally, each region or our wing equivalents have a lessons learned point of contact that acts as that touch point to funnel all this information. And then additionally, all of our chiefs help educate the field on this program.
I see. I was going to say, it certainly sounds like it's a total team effort in regards to L2.
Yes, it is. And we couldn't do any of it without each other. So it's a lot of partners.
Sounds like a good commercial for L2, that's for sure. Now, Allyson, in your short time as the OSI L2 director, it must be very gratifying for you to know that the program has produced some very positive results in different areas. What are some of the recent lessons learned successes that really stand out for you?
Well, the first I would say is the Afghanistan evacuation. The participants in that operation provided excellent data and observations, and we're still working that, but we partnered with the Futures and Doctrine office to ensure that one of the big problems or observations that came out of that was biometrics. So they're working to get those roles and those collection processes solidified for future ops and get that into doctrine. Also, deployment, related to deployment equipment. Basically, there's been a bunch of new equipment added, and that's based off direct feedback from our redeployers. And then finally, I wanted to mention that one of our large expeditionary units out there was managing our emergency and extraordinary expense funds program.
Right.
And redeployers provided numerous observations that related to that program and some of the problems that were caused by the management of the funds at a squadron level instead of the det level. So ultimately, it allowed for us to determine to provide each of those units with their own funds to run their own programs to get rid of those issues that we were having.
I see. So it sounds like for those units to be autonomous in their lessons learned at their level is a very key component as well, it seems.
Yes.
Now, for any program to gain maximum traction, Allyson, participation would seem to be a logical part of that. What are the ways that OSI members can help make their OSI Lessons Learned program reach its full potential?
Well, I touched on it briefly earlier, but do lessons learned early and often. Make sure that it's incorporated into your planning. We typically think of lessons learned at the end of an activity, but we should do it from the beginning and not just at the end. That's going to be very important to further your program. Also, be positive about lessons learned. Don't be afraid to share your information. Don't look at those observations as failures. Just understand that everything is a learning opportunity. Ensure that you have that support from leadership at all levels. And then finally, I would recommend open communication with your lessons learned team. That's going to definitely further your program and help in the long run.
I see. It sounds like a worthwhile program, no doubt about that. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I know you haven't been in the L2 director's chair all that long, but it must be a very challenging position for you and a very rewarding one at the same time. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yes, that is a fair statement. And it's still a lot to work on with this program. But I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to get the word out there about this program and let folks know that my door is always open. Contact me anytime with any questions or even feedback as to how we can make this program better and better work for everyone. And I would just like to say that as the L2 director, I work for you and I'm here to make your jobs easier.
Okay, very good. Very well said. And that ties a nice little bow on our session today. Our guest has been Associate Director of Studies and Analysis and Director of the OSI Lessons Learned program, Allyson Stephens. Allyson, thanks again for taking the time to join us. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Wayne.
And thanks to all of you listening for tuning in. For OSI Today, I'm Wayne Amon saying so long for now.